Trump has said that the United States shouldn't get involved in Syria, although he has not elaborated on U.S. policy since al-Assad's ouster. Meanwhile, leaders of the Group of Seven powers said they were ready to support the transition to an inclusive and non-sectarian government in Syria after Bashar al-Assad's rule. In a statement, they called for the protection of human rights, including those of women and minorities. They further urged the coming Syrian government to prevent the collapse of state institutions and ensure the conditions for safe and dignified voluntary return to Syria of all those who were forced to flee.
Dear viewers, to shed more light on the latest situation in Syria, we are delighted to be joined over the phone by Ambassador Medhat Miligy, the former Assistant Foreign Minister. Good evening, sir.
Good evening to you.
Your Excellency, how do you expect the echo of the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Jordan's King Abdullah II calls for a secure Syria regionally and internationally?
Well, I believe that the United States wants to secure its position as they are going to coordinate with the important players on the sea. However, what is the most concerning thing is the people who are in power in Damascus at the time, and unfortunately those people are not just on their own. They have been backed up by the United States and Turkey, and each of those parties have an issue in Syria. I mean, for the Turks, we know that they have an old desire to regain Hama once again, and not to forget the problems they have with the Kurds. On the other side, we have the United States, who have already a military base there, and they want to expand. And of course, the most important player who is always benefiting from all what's going on in Syria is Israel, who has already destroyed almost all the military capacity of Syria during the last 72 hours and even beyond that, in order to control the air in Syria and be able to do anything they want after the destruction of the Syrian arsenal and the military bases and airplanes, everything that they could launch any counterattack on Israelis. So actually the problem is that we have a proxy war going on in Syria, and the idea is how are those proxies are going to react all together on the Syrian land, not to mention the Syrian people who are now in the list of the zone of the old regime of al-Assad, and the situation might be dangerous since things are still very loose and not in control right now.
Your Excellency, Blinken warned against triggering further conflicts in Syria days after the ousting of Bashar al-Assad. What's your intake on this?
Well, actually, when Mr. Blinken is talking about this, he's talking about any other players than the Israelis, because we haven't heard anything regarding any movement and the annexation of more Syrian land from Mr. Blinken, which shows that there is a certain kind of support to the Israeli aggression. So actually, Mr. Blinken, when he's talking about any other regional power or regional influence in Syria. And what he's just talking about is that he wants things to be controlled in order not to cause any further damage to the area and the region. But this does not, of course, include Israel, which is the most dangerous party who is benefiting, as I said, from everything that is taking place in Syria. Unfortunately, since the Jabhat Tahrir al-Sham took power, we are not yet sure. I mean, there haven't been anything. We've heard about executions of the old regime people in the streets and many actually violation of the laws and the regular things. But at the end, we have to understand that the United States is concerned only when it comes to any regional power trying to exert any influence on Syria beside the Israelis and itself, of course, we of course understand that the Russians also have bases there. This might trigger some friction in the area.
Your Excellency, Egypt rejects the Israeli policy of targeting military infrastructure in Syria. How do you read this?
Well, this is the constant Egyptian position, not to interfere in other country situation, but actually beside the Egyptian position, which I think is backed up also by the Arab League, but the real power remains in the hands of the Syrians, because even with the Egyptian objection and condemnation, Israel is still carrying out its military operation. They managed until today to destroy the entire military infrastructure of Syria, and that's including airports, military bases, and even any air defense that could stop the Israeli attacks on Syria. And unfortunately, we do not see any reaction from the Syrian people or the Syrian actual government in power right now regarding this. And I hope that this is not going to continue and that Israel will retreat to times before. I mean, the idea of protecting the Golan Heights that is already an occupied territory seems a little bit out of the norm. However, because they are enjoying an unconditional American support, they can still do whatever they want, as we've seen in the past few months.
So to what extent would the current Syrian situation influence its neighboring countries?
Well, as I said, to a large extent, it's going to affect a lot of countries. Let's not forget that the situation is still unstable so far in Syria, and we cannot really consider that this is the end of the events in Syria by the end of the Assad regime. I believe that we might see some other frictions. I hope not, but still might reach a certain point of a civil war because there are so many players and proxy players in Syria, and this will entail definitely insurgencies by other powers outside of Syria, which could lead to more destruction to the Syrian capital and the Syrian cities. We have already a lot of land that is already occupied, whether we are talking about the Turks or the Israelis, and we hope that we can preserve the integrity of the Syrian territory, and if not, then we are going to suffer not just on the level of Syria, but this can have implications on the whole region in the Middle East.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency, Ambassador Medhat El-Miligy, the former Assistant Foreign Minister, for your valuable information and insight. So moving to the United States, U.S. President-elect